Why don't we go ahead and talk then about this January 6th related investigation, which some interesting developments. Go ahead and put this up there on the screen. Representative Scott Perry, he's a member of Congress, says that FBI actually seized his cell phone. This is one day after the Mar-a-Lago raid. The circumstances of the seizure are pretty interesting. He actually had just gotten off of a flight and he was approached by FBI agents who took possession of his cell phone. Here's what he says, quote, "This morning while traveling with my family, 3 FBI agents visited me and seized my cell phone. They made no attempt to contact my lawyer, who would have made arrangements for them to have my phone if it was their wish. I'm outraged, though not surprised, the FBI, under the direction of Merrick Garland's DOJ, would seize the phone of a sitting member of Congress. My phone contains info about my legislative political activities, my personal and private discussions with my wife, family, constituents, and friends. None of this is the government's business." Representative Perry actually asserted in a statement that connected this to the presidential raid in Mar-a-Lago, saying the DOJ chose this unnecessary and aggressive action instead of simply contacting my attorneys, blah, 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 these kinds of banana republic things. Now, you would ask then, well, why? And who is Mr. Perry? So Congressman Perry, 5-term congressman, long-term loyal Trump ally. To our purposes, though, he is most connected to the false elector scheme out of the state of Pennsylvania. So let's go ahead and put this next one up there. The Post actually did a decent job. Who is Scott Perry? What they run down here is that Scott Perry, the Pennsylvania Republican, was one of the major boosters of some of the election fraud claims. And part of the reason that they may have seized his cell phone is actually probably in relation to the criminal investigation into the use of fake electors to try and overturn the Biden victory and to present a false elector slate. You'll remember that Doug Mastriano was also involved in a lot of this. And so not only was Perry one of the people who was elevating some of these things, it seems now that he was involved in the actual plan to try and get the Department of Justice official Jeffrey Clark to be elevated then to the acting attorney general slot so that Mr. Clark could then undertake procedures to actually declare the Pennsylvania ballot results invalid, or at least throw them in some sort of in court proceeding, which would allow the false electors plan to proceed. All of this, though, traces back to the very difficult charge that we laid out from the very beginning, which is to try and prove a seditious conspiracy charge is extraordinarily difficult. We have seen in the past that DOJ and the FBI have not been able to prove it. Now, that is what they have charged the Oath Keepers and some of the Proud Boys with, to be clear. So we are going through active litigation, but it's very difficult to prove in a court of law. And ultimately, that's really the only way they'd be able to move forward with an actual indictment against any of these representatives, Krystal.
So I think that it is much less likely that they went for seditious conspiracy, which, as you said, they charged the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers with. And I read through, both of those indictments, and they had direct text messages of them plotting to bring weapons, and they had, very specific laid out plans. You can question how much of it was LARPing, how much of it was serious, how likely it was that they were going to accomplish their goals. But they had specific planning involving violent means, basically, in order to charge seditious conspiracy. More likely, if Trump or other high-level officials, including these people who, Scott Perry and these other Pennsylvania Republicans who have now been subpoenaed as well, more likely you would see something like the obstruction of a federal proceeding or whatever that one is called. Or you might see the conspiracy to defraud the government. Isn't that what the other one is called? So there are other potential charges. Now, that last one, and I might be getting the name of it wrong, but that one, it would be kind of a novel application of that law, and that makes prosecutors kind of nervous typically. I think probably the most likely one is in obstructing the official proceeding, which we've also seen a number of January 6th folks charged with. So, I think it's very clear. You've got investigations now. In New York, it's a civil investigation into Trump's business practices. We'll tell you about that in just a minute. We have these D.C. grand juries impaneled, and we've been getting reporting out recently, which we covered on this show, about how far along they seem to be. So they've been talking to a couple of former Pence aides. They've been looking specifically in detail at what Trump said at different meetings and seemed to be focused especially on his involvement. And there's two tracks there. There's one that's looking at, his incitement on January 6th. The one that seems to be a sort of more likely direction is the one regarding the fake elector scheme. And in addition, there's a Georgia investigation that also is looking at the fake elector scheme, specifically in Georgia. Now, if you believe Attorney General Eric Holder, that's actually the investigation that is the furthest along. And I think that he believes will result in high-level indictments in the most sort of timely pace. So we'll see whether he's right or not, but there's reason to believe him. He has at least some insight just given his background, given his level of connections, et cetera. So those are all the sort of fronts that Trump is facing jeopardy on. Not to mention, there was also a federal court ruling saying he does have to turn over his tax returns to a House committee. That will continue to be challenged, so we'll see where that ultimately goes, but a lot happening for him on the legal front this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And with Perry, I always do think it is worth what the actual objection to these guys in the election fraud was. Perry was the chief booster of something called Italygate, which claimed that
very credible scheme.
Military Italian defense contractor conspired with the CIA to use military satellites to change votes for Trump to Biden. How exactly he came up with this?
Or, it could just be the Trump loss.
Right.
That's
and
also the other possibility.
This came from, and I'm not kidding, he believed that at the heart of this was a Virginia socialite who brought this to his attention, who he then compiled and had these fake dossiers where he was convinced enough that he was literally asking Mark Meadows and the government in order to try and discuss it with the Italian government at the diplomatic level.
Can you imagine?
I cannot imagine that.
Oh my God.
And was sending the guy YouTube videos about it. And badgering the government, saying, why don't we just work with the Italian government? So this is up there with bamboo ballots out of the state of Arizona. I just think it's worth...
This guy's a genuine...
Oh, he's a believer, for
genuine kook.
I mean, he's just a boomer. Yeah. Clear boomer brain. I mean, if you're willing to believe... This is QAnon level stuff. And it's like, you're in the midst of the election, you see this video, and it's like edited exactly the right way, and you're like, hey, this is real, like, we gotta fight all this, and you start saying, I mean, how else do you blow up the phone of the White House chief of staff unless you believe this stuff is real? I don't know why you would otherwise. So, I mean, I guess he was genuine when he was doing it.
He also is one, allegedly, who asked for a preemptive pardon.
Yeah, that's right. Well, according to Cassidy Hudson, I don't know if it's true.
Yeah, but allegedly he is one of the ones that asked for a pardon. He denies it. But, yeah, I mean, listen, if you don't want to have your phone seized, then, like, don't try to, don't do this stuff.
Italian government.
Don't do that.
Italygate. There are many Italy gates. They start with their coffee. Okay, all right, we're getting away from that. All right.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.